Pleased to welcome here tonight to both of you in the audience physically as well as everybody online to this joint meeting of the Cotati City Council and the successor agency to the former Cotati Redevelopment Agency for Tuesday, November 27th. And I'm joined on the dais tonight by Vice Mayor John Delasso, Councilmember Susan Harvey, as well as Councilmember John Moore. And at the staff table, we have our City Manager, Damien Ovid, our City Attorney, Robin Donahue, our Police Chief, Michael Parrish, our Community Development Director, Vicki Parker, and back over to this side, we have our City Engineer and Director of Public Works, Craig Scott. And over to my right, we have our City Clerk, Lauren Burgess, who will ask to lead us in a roll call, please.
Councilmember Moore.
Here.
Mayor Landman.
Here.
Vice Mayor Delasso.
Here.
Councilmember Harvey.
Here.
And I'll show Councilmember Scummon is absent.
Very good, thank you. And that brings us to item 3 on the agenda, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm going to invite our Honorary Mayor, Noelle Stockham, to come up and lead us one more time if she'd be willing to.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you very much, Honorary Mayor Stockham. That was very good. That brings us to item 4, which is approval of minutes and notice of waiving of reading of all resolutions and ordinances introduced and/or adopted under this agenda. This is an action item. I'm going to look to see if we have any changes or additions to the meeting. From seeing none, then I'll look for a motion.
So moved.
Second. Motion is second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And that carries 4 with one absence. And I have a few announcements to read for everybody tonight. And we'll begin with the meeting orientation for new attendees and new viewers. In conformance with the Brown Act and the adopted City Council rules, the meeting agenda includes items labeled as action items, where the City Council will consider the item and citizens are afforded the opportunity to provide comments relevant to the item being discussed. The meeting agenda also includes a citizens' business item, which is the designated place on the agenda where citizens have the right to say whatever they wish. The City Council may or may not choose to respond to comments as the government code allows. However, if the City Council declines to respond, it should not be perceived as giving credence to or agreeing with any statements that the City Council or its members believe to be incorrect, misinformed, or purposely biased. Next, the City of Cotati has special open office hours on Monday evenings from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. by appointment in the Community Development Department at City Hall. And this is part of our Cotati Open for Business program. This provides personalized assistance and information to developers, current Cotati business owners, and those interested in starting a new business within the community. Next, the Rohnert Park Cotati Regional Library continues to host events for all ages, including art exhibits, book clubs, and children's programs. All events are free and open to the public. For more information, you could call the library at 584-9121 or visit them at sonomalibrary.org. Next, the Cotati Historical Society Museum is open regularly the second Tuesday of each month from 5 to 7 p.m. Saturdays from 1 to 4 p.m., and of course by appointment. For more information, you can contact them as well at 707-794-0305. Citizens interested in receiving City of Cotati community alerts via text or email are encouraged to sign up at nixle.com. And next, the city does offer a wide variety of recreation programs for all ages. We have details on all of this on the web at cotaticity.org. And this is an important one, I'm happy to point out. Next, the City of Cotati and the California Homemakers Association, or CHA, are once again preparing to partner to prepare food boxes for those in need this holiday season. We'd like to encourage everybody that wants to help to join them in the classroom behind City Hall on Saturday, December 22nd, between 10 and 2, to assemble food boxes with donations from numerous local businesses. For donations to this event or for more information, you can call the California Homemakers Association, the CHA, at 707-591-9573. And lastly tonight, once again, it is that time for our annual holiday toy drive. This is sponsored by the City of Cotati, Rancho Adobe Fire District, as well as the Rohnert Park Cotati Rotary. Forms to request toys for children 12 and under are available at the police department. The toys will be delivered on Saturday, December 22nd by Santa, who will have his usual escort of police cars and fire trucks. Unwrapped toys can be donated at City Hall, at the police department, and at the fire department. Donation barrels for toys will also be at the Cotati Shop and Stroll on Saturday, December 1st, and at the Cotati Holiday Tree Lighting on Friday, December 7th. And this brings us back to item 6, and this is our honorary mayor. And I'm very pleased to welcome back Noel Stockham of Lawrence E. Jones Middle School. Welcome back.
Hello, and thank you for welcoming me back to speak to you again. In the past 2 weeks, I've gone around my school and asked what people think should be improved or added in the city of Cotati. I got a lot of feedback. One of the biggest subjects that came up was introducing more activities for children of the age 12 to 15. Because looking through the activity pamphlet for Cotati, there are a lot of activities for younger kids or older kids, and none really for the preteens or teens. Some thoughts my fellow students and I had were a similar thing to the adults paint night, but for kids for the ages 12 to 15. I also have more movie in the park events, and maybe even an all-weather track behind the city council building, which would attract many people. We think that there needs to be better advertisement for events that involve kids. Working with CRP USD District to get the events better advertised is a good idea. I am not in high school yet, but when I am, I have to raise 40 hours of community service, and I feel like there's a lot of opportunities here in Cotati to do community service, but nobody knows about them because there is not enough promoting about what is occurring here. Through my years of living in Cotati, I have noticed that most of all downtown is for adults, and it is mostly bars. So I think to reflect Cotati in a better light to visitors and our current residents is to do more involving for kids and maybe start to add businesses that are family friendly. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. All right. Well, I'll bring this back to the council. We'll see if we have any questions. That was good bullets of information for us to work with. Who'd like to lead off? Mr. Vice Mayor?
I'll go ahead and start since I gave Noel the homework assignment. Sorry.
Principal.
Let me just dive in. So that's a great suggestion about, more activities for the 12 to 15-year-olds. We can certainly pass that on to the Recreation Department and see what Ashley Wilson, who runs that, can come up with some great ideas. I know she can. The statement you made, though, about better promotion and how to promote these activities, how would you guys, I'd like to say social media is probably one good avenue. I didn't want to say Facebook because I keep being told that that's for old people, which is why I do it apparently. But I mean, what are the better avenues for you guys to get that information?
Yeah, well, like announcements at school, like if you tell the school, they'll announce it over the loud comm to like everyone. Because they do that for like some events at like the Recreational Center down in Rohnert Park. And so yeah, that'll be like a way to like get the word out so kids know what's happening.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that. And thanks for coming back. You did a great job with your homework assignment. It's like an A+ for sure.
Thank
But I'll
you.
let these guys weigh in too. Thank you.
Very good. Who'd like to go next?
Well, thank you, and thank you for the feedback. It's interesting that you point out the businesses and having more family-oriented businesses. I'm sure with the Cotati Open for Business that's something that our community development director can look for. Unfortunately, we don't own a lot of the business properties, but we can watch for things and reach out for things. But most property is privately owned, and we don't always get a lot of say in what goes in there. But point well taken that we can watch for things that are more family friendly. You mentioned movies in the park, so more movies. I think we ended up doing 3 or 4 this last summer. So some of it's weather dependent. Maybe we might want to think of maybe another venue, would an indoor maybe, when the weather is bad, could we take that screen maybe indoors? Does it have to be outdoors? Is that maybe a possibility? But it's something for us to think about, expanding that avenue. But thank you so much for the feedback, and thank you for being our honorary mayor.
Thank you.
Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Noel, for some of those suggestions. If I understood you correctly, did you say something in reference to an all-weather track?
Yes.
You were talking about here at Caterfield?
Yes.
That's certainly something to consider for when the Rancho track or the Lawrence Jones tracks are not available.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a pretty good suggestion there. And then, of course, I love the fact that you're open and willing to explore the community service opportunities. We have quite a few. That's terrific. And our recreation department has kind of risen from the ashes because due to budgetary cuts several years ago, we eliminated the recreation department, so we brought it back. And one of the things that has been suggested over the years has been more of a teen center. So it might be a time to start exploring that if the budget allows for something like that. But we'll certainly take those into consideration. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think Ashley Wilson, our Director of Recreation, has learned if you miss the meeting, you have to be careful because everybody will start coming up with a lot of ideas and new things for you to do. So you just taught her a very good lesson as honorary mayor, I think. I do think you mentioned, I was thinking the same thing about announcements. Somebody asked you and you mentioned that. I wonder if I could ask one last favor out of you as our honorary mayor. Whoever's responsible at your school for doing the announcements, if you could introduce them via an email or whatever way is easiest with Ashley, then we could make sure that she can share information, perhaps on an ongoing basis. I think this would be a great thing for recreation to do actually with all the schools, if we can reach out and do that and get that started. Because number one, the opportunities for various, as you mentioned, classes, events, but also too, when it comes time for that 40 hours of service you're required to do. I have a feeling, I know how it worked for me when I was that age. It's all at the last minute. So we're gonna have a bunch of people that want it. So if we can help find you some hours, that would be great. So we'll see if we can do that. As far as the movies, I wonder if we could start looking, we've always kind of slanted it, I think, young. I wonder if we could take a look at our number of events, and if we can't add to them, perhaps we could have a mix of ages, some younger and maybe a couple for a slightly older group. I'd even suggest perhaps we'd be open to, I'm sure there's limitations in what we can get and get a license to show, but there's no reason you can't suggest what you'd like to see. So I think we're open to emails. That's what we're here for, and we'd like to hear that, and maybe we can make that happen and give something that your classmates would want to see. So I'm going to agree with my colleagues and thank you very much for being here.
Mayor Lamon, if I may, I'd like to ask Noel another question.
Another question? All right, go ahead.
So what are the primary applications that you use for social media?
Most likely Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter. Yeah. It's what kids are the most active on.
Oh, thank you, because I don't know that we've explored those avenues yet, but we may. Just try to reach out. Thank you.
Good. All righty. So, yeah, first of all, I'm going to ask you, who have you brought with you tonight? Would you like to introduce your entourage?
Okay, so my mom, Dina, and my stepdad, Brian. And then on the other side, there is my dad, John, my little sister, Cora, and my stepmom, Monica.
Well, hello, everybody. So I wanted to mention, you mentioned something about having an interest in makeup and effects makeup and that whole industry potentially. Our staff were aware of a professional makeup company in Cotati called Croyland, and they reached out to Ms. Claudia Longo. and talk to her about your interest. And she said she would be happy, if you're interested, to give you a tour of the facility, to give you some more information about the industry, and she'd be happy to schedule that with you after the first of the new year. They're doing some expansion right now, so it would be best to do after the holidays. That would probably be best for you guys and your family. But I will give this to, with the contact information, as well as your, as well as this nice proclamation we have for you, so you can do that if you'd like. And I want to thank Mr. Obid for having the thoughtfulness to reach out and do that, and his staff. I'm having a feeling actually it wasn't Mr. Obid from the Guilty Smile. Somebody was thoughtful, so thank you for that. That's a good thing. So with that, I'm going to ask you if you'd like to bring your family up, and we'll give a picture of you all together, and we'll get a picture with the council giving you this. Would you like to invite everybody up, and we can meet right in front here? So this brings us to item 7, and this is a presentation. And we have a presentation from Sonoma County Tourism for the City Council. This is a strict presentation, not an action item. And who do we have here to present for us tonight? Welcome and come forward.
This year in the holidays, we have gifts for everybody, so like, hopefully there's enough for everybody. There's a copy of our strategic business plan
Okay, yeah.
for you as well. So,
Okay.
you know,
It's homework,
It's
good.
our own definition of a gift.
Okay, good. Thank you.
There you are.
Everybody wants a Sonoma County tourism strategic.
Who wouldn't? I agree, yeah.
Don't fight over it. So I brought only 8, so I know you're all really good at sharing. Very good. So do we use, is there a clicker then? Thanks for your help. There we go. That looks familiar. All right, everyone, thank you so much for your time this evening. We appreciate it. We do have 56 slides that we're going to cover tonight. However, we will go through most of them really, really quickly. So we respect the 10 minutes that we've been allotted. So we just wanted to make sure we erred on the side of providing more information than not enough. We're here today. By the way, my name is Todd O'Leary. I'm the head of marketing and communications for Sonoma County Tourism. And this is my colleague, Nicole Braden.
And I'm the director of community engagement.
Together we're going to take you through a little bit of what we've been working on at Sonoma County Tourism. Of course, we're a county-wide tourism promotion agency. So it's been our great pleasure to go around around the county and do these kinds of presentations about what we've been working on and the good work we're doing for the tourism industry in each of our communities, respectively and individually, throughout the county. So with that, let's see here. Want to talk a little bit about fire recovery.
Yeah, so a little bit just to talk briefly about fire recovery and some of the efforts that Sonoma County Tourism took during these times. Of course, something that we never really expected to have happen. We did have a disaster plan in place, but there were several things that happened during this disaster that we all just didn't expect, one of which is that 75% of our staff would be displaced, and that putting this plan in motion was really going to be a challenge without, we had our communications manager writing press releases from her car with her cell phone in her car to charge her phone battery. So we had all kinds of things that we, of course, didn't expect, but we did have a chance to roll out this disaster recovery, or this plan. And some of the ways that, some of the things that we had set up is we had set it up to be in 3 phases. One was short-term, so the short-term planning through containment, a mid-term plan that was containment through June 30th, and then, of course, the long-term plan after July 1st, 2018, with a multi-pronged approach of both supporting meaning really supporting the community and supporting our over 2,500 tourism-facing businesses, and, of course, the community, and then educating our consumers, and then eventually selling, and getting back to business, bringing folks back to Sonoma County. I will go through these pretty quickly. Got it. So in terms of support, short term, again, we were providing messages to our various publics, aligning with the messaging that was going on around the cities. We were working directly with our cities, with our chambers, making sure that we all were on point with messaging. I think people didn't quite know what to do or how to answer questions, and we were there to provide them with the toolkit. So my job in community engagement was to get out there and to make sure that our businesses had what they needed and that we were all communicating this in the same way. Educating, providing our consumers with the correct information, making sure that we were alleviating fear. And then the selling, we really halted on the selling. We wanted to make sure that first we were taking care of our community and our businesses and making sure that they were all getting what they needed. Here we go. Okay. Again, Open for Business, that was a big part. I partnered with the EDB. We created the Open for Business signs. When it was time to go into that next phase, you probably see some heads nodding. You probably saw our Open for Business signs up. We worked closely with the chambers to make sure we got those out to our businesses. I think that was a big boost for our businesses to feel that, that fear that they had that people weren't going to be coming to Sonoma County, that yes, indeed, we are open for business. And continuing to educate our media, because there was a lot of misinformation out there, and so we created fact sheets that we sent out to all of our media partners. And then again, we started to very slowly start to sell Sonoma County, first reaching out to those who had already visited. A little bit of our marketing, we did our first co-op with Napa, which is unusual. So we did that. We were doing radio spots, putting out our bold, brave, committed, resilient in the Sonoma County Gazette, and then now is the time. Now is the time to come back to Sonoma County. Again, I mentioned that we reached back out to our to people who had visited, our loyal customers, to tell them that we are in fact here and we're open for business. And this is just a little example of that postcard we sent out. So there was social and digital response. We had posted all kinds of videos of visitors that were here showing current photographs, because I think, again, there was this misconception that all of Sonoma County had burned down. We wanted to make sure that the media knew and that our consumers knew that we were open for business. And so we created a big social and digital response to that with various videos. Public relations, we made sure to get in front of press. That was very, very important, and we continue to need to do that because there still is perception. I think with these new Butte County fires, there is still perception that California is on fire. We want to make sure that we're getting the information that they need to continue to encourage visitors to come so that our businesses stay up and running. And then midterm, we thanked our hospitality community for everything that they did during these fires. We really, our industry really stepped up, and we were very proud of that, providing, of course, places for people to stay. Our hotels opened their doors, meals, you know, were given to those displaced. There were just a myriad of things that our industry did to make sure that people were fed and taken care of, because that's really what the hospitality industry does so well. And again, educating, outreach, and then selling, going back to business and back to our fall and winter campaigns. A little bit of another thing we did was the Sonoma Passport. There were businesses saying, we are really hurting, people are not coming. So we worked with our visitor centers and chambers, and we created a passport so that people would go and check in with these businesses that were really struggling. And if they went to visit a couple of different places on the passport, they would get a bag or some kind of swag that we had, some kind of gift that we had. And so that was a successful program we ran. And then meeting planner incentives, this is something that we typically do, but in this case, not only were we didn't want people to move their meetings, we were encouraging people to bring their meetings during this time. And so we made actually fire relief donations, and those donations we would, when meetings came, we gave them their fire relief incentive, plus we did fire relief efforts in the amount of $8,250 that we gave then to the Community Foundation to encourage that giving. Thank you, Ad. Again, I just mentioned that we wanted to make sure to thank our businesses that really stepped up to the plate during this difficult time. And then long term, and this will segue into Todd's section, is that we will continue to monitor media, because media is constantly something that we need to address. There's still photographs out there of all the devastation, so we need to keep telling that positive story. Continuing to outreach to local businesses and to track how is business for our local tourism businesses, making sure that we have our finger on that. Continuing to survey consumer perceptions, that's a really important piece, and something that Todd will cover really briefly. And then initiate new programs as needed. We are always open to making sure that we are servicing our community and our tourism businesses as best we can.
Thank you, Nicole. So again, post-fires, we conducted a couple of consumer perception studies, both in January of this year as well as August of this year, just to measure a change in consumer, hopefully consumer perception of the destination, hopefully in the positive. So again, I won't spend a lot of time on these slides in the interest of time, but I think there's some really good research here that shows that as we move further and further post-fires, people are more open to visiting the destination. We're certainly seeing that not only in perception studies, but also certainly in visitation to the destination in the most recent numbers that we have actually of people staying here. So again, I'll kind of breeze through these and let you review these after the meeting. But again, generally moving the needle in the right direction about, again, being really mindful of current media perceptions of the destination and certainly consumer perceptions of the destination as well. Also did a local business survey. So we did that in partnership with the EDB as well. So in similar fashion, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but again, not surprisingly, a lot of the businesses, especially the tourism-facing businesses in the county, are still reporting challenges in welcoming people back to the destination. Wineries, tasting rooms in particular, are still showing overall down year over year. And so that's something that we're really very much laser focused on, and working with the local hospitality businesses to welcome folks back to the destination. And then finally, I I just want to, I know we're close to time here. State of Sonoma County tourism, some numbers here, both in 2017 and certainly 2018 year to date. We are a large industry. We employ a lot of Sonoma County residents. We provide a lot of tax relief through tourism receipts to the local community. And so again, it's really imperative that from an economic standpoint, we're, and just a really, I think, just a public well-being standpoint, that we're welcoming people back to the destination, because it means money in our residents' pockets and in the coffers of local governments. So just some performance specific to the hotel community here in the county. Just want to end, just to take a couple of minutes. We have just undergone a rebranding of the destination. We really launched a brand new destination brand for the entire county, and so I want to take you through that again very quickly. A good brand is like art. It makes you feel something. Think about the brands that are important to you, whether that's you're a Coke or a Pepsi person, or a Ford or a Chevy person. There's reasons that we're loyal to brands. And so too with the competitive landscape that we're in. We don't always think about it, but we as a destination compete with other destinations. We're not only competing with the Napas and the Mendocinos and the Paso Robles of the world, other wine destinations throughout the county, but we're competing with other destinations of similar or dissimilar sort of fashion to us for tourism dollars. We all, again, have those choices of where we travel and where we spend our vacation dollars, and so it's incumbent that we really leverage our own brand here in Sonoma County to welcome people to the destination. This talks a little bit about a brand versus a campaign. Again, a brand is really sort of our DNA of the destination. A campaign then takes that brand and sort of projects it out to the different audiences that we're going after. So we worked with a MMGY, which is a global marketing destination-specific agency. They came into for three in-market visits. They spent a total of 16 days here in the destination and conducted over 75 stakeholder interviews. Again, this is throughout the county. So you can see some of the different types of folks that were a part of those interviews. Conducted some research, again, for visitors and residents throughout the county. And these are the things that those stakeholders used as descriptors for Sonoma County. And these are the things that really rose to the surface. So look at those things that are those words that are outlined in red. And I really think all of the words on this page, I think all of us as Sonoma County residents, it really resonates with us, some or all of those words. And so those are the words that we're using and we have used to create our new brand. So through that, again, we found that Sonoma County is connecting. We're fiercely independent, progressive, real, unpretentious, generous. So again, that's some of what we've used to create our new brand. We find that wine isn't the only reason to visit, but it's certainly a major reason for people to visit. So you'll see that in sort of some of the creative executions that we have in welcoming people to the destination, that we're using wine as an intro, but it's by no means telling the entire story. This is some of the feedback and some of the quotes that came out of this particular exercise. So then we start to come up with this brand architecture. Again, some of the words that I shared with you before, and again, how we're sort of presenting the brand to our customers. So positioning statements, kind of like a mission statement for our brand. For those who go their own way, Sonoma County is a progressive community of artisans who create meaningful and down-to-earth experiences that connect people and encourage them to discover more. That's really what we think our brand sort of promise is to people who visit here. So with that, Sonoma County Life Opens Up is the brand that we have sort of distilled out of all of those things I just covered with you. Again, we really think that it speaks well not only for those visitors who we want to come to the destination, but I think it really speaks to so many of us as residents too, and the reason that we choose to call Sonoma County home. place that, you know, is sort of a, you know, a lot of people that visit here would love to live here, and we're lucky enough to truly call Sonoma County home. So again, some of the creative executions, this is about where I'll leave you for the evening, but you can see as we go through this, a satisfying fullness, a natural sweetness, enjoyed best among friends, a cool crisp finish. We're using, again, these wine sort of terms, but you're seeing a cool crisp finish, and of course seeing the cool crisp Sonoma County coastline. So it's sort of a play on words, again, using that wine as an intro, but talking about the Sonoma County coast in this way, or the redwoods, or other experiences that you can have throughout the destination. So we really feel like it does a very nice job of doing that. Of course, you asked about the honorary mayor before, about different channels that she's using to communicate. We go through similar exercises when we're finding out where tourists are getting their information, and these are the items, the channels, if you will, that we find are most useful and effective in conveying those messages. So this is the last slide, I promise. It's Sonoma County Tourism in Cotati. One of the folks on our staff, Charmaine, is our meeting sales and services manager, and she sits on the Chamber of Commerce as a member here. As we've gone through our website, we've counted 110 blogs that mention Cotati and the businesses that are featured here. Again, we're really keen on making sure we tell not only a destination story on a whole, but also in individual fashion. So it's important for us to surface Cotati and your businesses and events through our website. 40 different businesses have free listings on our website. So those again are the tourism-facing businesses such as restaurants, spas, shopping, cultural arts, weddings, and nightlife. We have a dedicated Cotati City landing page as well, so you'll see that when you visit our website. And then middle of last year, we had a face-to-face meeting with Mr. Oped and Vicki Parker. So thank you so much for your time. It was before my time, but I know Nicole was obviously involved with that. So thank you for being great supporters of our organization and our mission. So again, you know, there's a lot of opportunities. This is what currently exists within the sort of framework of where our two sort of worlds intersect. We'd love to explore more of those ideas as we look to, again, represent the entire destination. So thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Let me ask any questions or comments from the council in the presentation.
A lot of information we do recommend.
I see one of you has to go first. Mr. Vice Mayor?
All right, thank you. I'm kind of curious, when either you guys were doing some of the research and talking to the different businesses, or I'm going to, for lack of a better word, the consultants that you also had working for you, did you ever come across an opportunity, because you know there's distinct hospitality, there's lodging, there's food, wine is its own category. And by the way, if you ever need to compete with Napa, remember Napa is for parts, Sonoma is for wine. Just keep that in mind. Don't use that, and don't ever attribute it to me either, because it could be bad. But did you ever consider, or are they partnering together? In other words, you know, Sonoma County, there's a lot of recreational uses, from beaches to trails, etc. Biking, horseback riding, hiking, whatever. And kind of partnering something like that, you know, hey, come and spend the day hiking, you know, through these lovely non-burned, you know, oak woodlands, and spend the night here and or have dinner there, but actually having those guys kind of partner together. Have you guys done some of that and had success with it?
Absolutely. In fact, one of the ladies that sits on our board is with the county parks system. And so absolutely, that's not only because of her position on the board, but we're very keen on surfacing those types of things for visitors to consider.
Yeah. And I think, you know, it's a great idea, because it's kind of a natural fit, and the businesses are all right there ready and willing to cater to these folks.
That's right.
And we're also working with the EDB on Outdoor Recreation Month in May, and we're working closely with them to continue. They just started it last year, and our team has been working closely with them to elevate those experiences as well.
Good. Yeah, I guess I'm still just a little surprised that people are still hesitant. You know, I mean, it all depends where they're getting their information, I suppose. So, yeah, the more that you can saturate, hey, you know, we're open for business, come and enjoy this area.
As part of our brand launch, we just launched the brand just timing-wise, just in the last couple of months. In fact, we were in New York City for a couple of media events, actually. So we did desk site visits with Lifestyle and just kind of major media news outlets, just to really kind of not only re-invite people back to the destination, but just like Nicole said, we really want to portray what the destination truly looks like right now, and that it's you know, while it suffered tremendous losses in many ways, our tourism infrastructure, thank God, you know, was largely untouched.
Yeah.
And so those are some of the messages that we use the brand as sort of our door opening for that, and we're able to tell kind of a post-fire, you know, a lot of post-fire stories.
Oh, that's great. And best of luck to you guys with that. Sounds like you're moving full bore ahead, so good job.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. I think a lot of it you hit in your slide that says the natural beauty hits you and your mind opens up. I think that that's true. People oftentimes say, oh, it's the wine, but when people get here and they see all the natural beauty from the coasts to the mountains, we are very blessed to live in the area that we live in. We can get lots of places in a very short period of time, and it's wonderful that you point out our proximity to lots of different things, so that people don't think that it's just, you know, winery after winery after winery. So thank you very much for the work you do, and I'm glad that you were able to help when the fires happened, to kind of let people get that message that all of Sonoma County did not burn, and that we're still here and we are still moving forward. So thank you.
Councilmember Moore.
Thank you for the work you do. It's obviously important. It's a $2 billion industry for the county. It's a lot of revenue coming in, a lot of employment for a lot of people around here. In one of the slides, you talked about 2017-2018 year-to-date monthly percentage changes in lodging performance, and of course we had the spike in October of last year. In looking forward, or looking ahead, 2019, 2020, do you have any projections that you're looking at?
We're very optimistic about what the future holds. You know, again, it's just thank goodness the Butte fires are done, because you know that has really not obviously impacted us from an air quality standpoint. But what we're finding is that when you know people outside of the state hear fires, California, they don't realize, of course, what a big state we are, and that was you know what 4 or 5 hours away from us. And so those are the types of things that if we can get you know the mindset right in the consumers' minds, the future is truly very bright for the county, and we're seeing a rebound. It's not as strong as we would like, especially from you know our wineries. I always very much stick with me, because the hotels have done a little bit better than we might have expected them to. Wineries and tasting rooms are still down year over year, and so that sort of rebound hasn't kind of gotten to everybody as much as we would have liked that to. So I think you know one of the things that we're working on and have done a good deal of work on already in the association that we work in is just making sure that we are inviting the right customer groups back to the destination too, and certainly reaching out and opening up new markets. So namely international markets is something that we now have a tourism development, global tourism development team. So where before we were you know more singularly focused on some leisure visitors and a meetings market, those are still very important to us, but now we're actively going out, and you know we have a couple of staff going to Europe next week and promoting the destination to the French and Italian markets. We were just in the UK recently, so trying to open up more of those international markets is also something we're looking at doing, especially those European markets who are you know have a good propensity to travel and have a familiarity already with the California product.
Thank you. And then one final question I had on that was, what is currently our occupancy rate on hotels? Do you know?
recent one, I would have to get back to you on that exactly. You know, going into now, you know, a softer period of the year, you know, after harvest and crush, it's certainly softer. One of the things that we're working on here too is really using this time to welcome people to the destination and say, you didn't like the room rates, you know, in July, August, September, October, come back. It's, you know, still a very nice time of the year to visit, you know, largely, especially when they had a blizzard in the Midwest the other day. So, you know, we might have a little rain outside today, but it's still nicer than it is in Chicago, you know, today. So we're using those opportunities, especially as another thing we're really leveraging is the airport and the new nonstop flights that are coming in and out of STS. We're really excited about that. We're, you know, really laser focused right now on Denver because that's the next city to launch nonstop service in March. And so we're going to be doing some work in Denver to welcome, you know, people on the nonstop flight on United into the destination. So leveraging those kinds of aspects, again, using the positive things that we've got going on in the destination to welcome people here. You don't have to connect in other places anymore. You can come nonstop. It's an increasingly great story that we have to tell out of our Charles Schulz Airport.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to echo my colleagues and say that was a lot of rather fascinating information presented tonight. I was really surprised to see how much of the tourism industry actually is much smaller businesses than many of us would have thought. I think we have this picture of these rather large operations, these winery monoliths, and actually from this I can see that the larger percentage are small businesses, 2- and 3-person operators quite often, in a very small amount of franchisees. So it's nice to see local business be able to succeed. Glad to see you try to help them. I did take a look at some of the listings you put for Cotati just to check. I have to do that. Very pleased to see the trade winds listed. I think, was it one of the top 10 places in the county or the recommended place to stop and visit? So that was a nice shout out to them. I'm sure they'll be pleased to see that. So I'm going to give you a thumbs up for that. I would be remiss, though, if I didn't suggest, and hopefully you'll never be in the position where you have to do a thank you ad, but in the future. But I'm sure you'll be doing other advertising and work. And I would suggest looking at this nice list you had on the slide of places where the thank you ad ran. I have to recommend our local newspaper, the Community Voice. Okay. You missed about 50,000 people, about 7K in Cotati, about another roughly 43 in Roanoke Park. And since they have a different distribution method, they get places where the PD doesn't and vice versa. So I would ask you to add that to your list for next time.
That's great feedback because we're working on it right now.
We're working on another thank you ad.
Perfect timing. There we go. Well, thank you very much tonight for your presentation, and thank you again for the work you did.
Thanks for having us.
You're quite welcome. All right. And while we adjust the electronics here, this brings us to approval of the final agenda. Item 8, this is an action item. Do we have any changes to the agenda tonight, Mr. Obid?
No proposed changes, Mayor.
Seeing no changes, very good. And this brings us to item 9, which is citizens' business and public comment for consent calendar items. And I will read something first and then open it to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak to the council on any items listed on the consent calendar or any matters not listed on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the council is not allowed to consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda during this period. Pursuant to City Council Policy 2017-02, comments of any member of the public are normally restricted to a total of 3 minutes in length per person for matters not on the agenda, and a total of 3 minutes per person in length for any and all items on the consent calendar. The mayor may extend the time limit for a reasonable time where a disability accommodation has been requested. And with that, I will open it to public comment and see who would like to speak tonight. Ms. Alderman, welcome.
I wanted to let you know after last week there was a whole lot of backlash against all of you for your heartlessness, your disrespect, and everything of me as the only citizen that showed up for the council meeting. There was so much going on behind the scenes, off camera and on camera. You bullied, and you degraded me throughout it. and people noticed. They called you heartless, joyless, lots of words. Mark Lamond, you did not have a mandate. I didn't realize this, and that after election day, and of course you're going to look down and not respect me. After election night, you didn't respect that the vote was not final, and you said it was a mandate. It was not a mandate. It was 2 out of 3 chances of default. The people do not have, the reality is you have nobody coming to these meetings. The reality is you didn't care about any of us during the 2 weeks of the firestorm and the smoke. You continually talk about county issues without giving one thing to the city. You don't show, when you're disrespecting me, you disrespect all the citizens of this city, and they know it. I deserve apologies from a number of you, and for your disrespect, and your ethics need to be put on, you need to put it on some agendas. You need to realize the realities of this city, that people do not think you're wonderful. They think you're a really good salesman, Mark. That's all they think. They think you, and you're a smooth talker. That's all they think. So you need to, you can bully, you can do anything you want because you have the power. But I tell you, us citizens have power too.
Are you speaking on consent tonight, Ms. Alderman? Very good. All right, would anybody else like to speak in citizens' business tonight? Mr. Kirchman, welcome.
Thank you. I'll start with a little review. Noel comes from Lawrence Jones Middle School. It's the only school in the state of California named and honoring a police officer in the state. So I think that's worthy of some of us recognizing that. Yes, you can have an overpass, you can have a side of a road, but this is the only school. So I think it's important that the community realizes that some people do care about law enforcement and what they've done. Mr. Moore, you mentioned Snapchat in regards to this student. That's eligible for people that are 13 years of age. I don't quite know who mandates that, but it's a little peculiar. Sadly, there are people younger than that that lie and use it. Instagram is used even by police force in Cotati. I've seen people posting there. Mr. Deloso, you kind of referenced Sonoma County versus another dark side over the hill, which friends of mine used to have sheep farms, and I think now they're probably full of grapes. But in the challenge of California against France, which tended to make Napa pretty important, 55% of the grapes came from a winery back at Gallupi, and I apologize if I mispronounce it. That's in West Side Road in Sonoma County. So historically, we're the place to be. Okay, moving along, over the past few years, I've suggested that you folks do what our neighboring city does, the Friendly City, which is a survey. They've done surveys routinely to find out what do the people want. I think you should probably do that. I would suggest that you encourage your second highest paid employee to continue doing articles in The Voice. So far there have been 2. One was regarding a canine unit, and there was allusions to poodles and that sort of thing. The second one was regarding public works and a vacuum cleaner truck and something to do with sheep. I appreciate the whimsy and the like, but it would be good for us to at least be on a par with Rohnert Park. We came into being at the same time as Rohnert Park, and it would be good if the city started not being the sleepy, quiet, subtle, quaint, smallest town in the county, but start actually being a participant, start actually stepping up to the mark. So it would be good if your staff started to present themselves and present Cotati as it should be. A place worth living in, a place worth coming to, a place worth visiting. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to look around one more time and see if anybody'd like to speak in citizens' business. And seeing no one step forward, I am going to close citizens' business and consent calendar items. And this brings us to the aforementioned consent calendar. This is item 10, and we have one item. I'm going to ask the council if anybody wishes to pull that item, or do I have a motion tonight?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and second, Councilmember Hyver and Councilmember Moore. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that carries 4 with 1 absent. And this brings us to item 11, direction on future agenda items. I will quickly ask any of my colleagues if there's anything you want to bring forward this evening. Very good. And this brings us to our regular agenda, and we have a few items on the agenda tonight. And we're going to be starting with an update on the Cotati Chamber of Commerce activities for the first half of this fiscal year. And let me turn to the page here. And this is written by Vicki Parker, our Community Development Director, so I believe you'll introduce this for us.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, council members. As you will recall, I'm sure, the council made a decision just prior to the end of last fiscal year to fund the chamber for the services they provide, to help them with the services that they provide to our local businesses, primarily marketing and promotion support. And at that meeting, the council also asked the chamber to come back periodically and provide us with an update of what they've been doing. So tonight is the first of those reports, and our plan is to bring another one to you toward the end of the fiscal year. So attached to the packet, page 99 of your packet, is a brief recap of, it's actually not so brief of a recap of what the chamber has been up to since July 1st. And I'm going to introduce Erin Armstrong, who is this year's president of the chamber board, and ask her to come forward and tell you a little bit more about these.
Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. It's kind of coincidental that the Sonoma County Tourism was here because I am a CTA, Certified Tourist Ambassador, as are some other members on our board of directors, and I have been trying to get a FAM trip, which is a familiarity trip that these CTAs we take throughout Sonoma County, and I've been on them to get them to come down to Sonoma County, or to Cotati, excuse me, to see our cute little town. So someday soon, hopefully, we'll have a FAM trip full of CTAs that will come and learn about Cotati. So let me tell you a little bit about what we've done. We have a new office manager there that is just gangbusters and doing a wonderful, wonderful job. Her name is Liz Geromerlair. I like to mess her name up, so I call her Liz D. And she has been a gold mine to our new chamber office manager. She's been doing quite a good job. She's been keeping track of the visitors that we have that come in, the phone calls that we get, the emails that we get, and she's calibrated that we had 46 walk-in inquiries coming into the chamber at various times. Most people come in looking for information about the area, but there are also a lot of senior citizens that come in looking for resources for seniors. And I've been in there several times when people have come in, people with new businesses, just people off the streets. It's very important to have a representation there. We have a large wall full of information on areas and things to do in Cotati and Sonoma County, bus schedules, that sort of thing. So that plays a big role. As far as membership goes, we've been working really hard on getting more members involved. We have 6 new members. We have a new member outreach focus, has been our focus to get new members. We've done significant outreach to Cotati businesses, which are not current members, in order to ascertain how the chamber can increase and be of assistance to these businesses. We've put on several activities. One of our board's overreaching goals is to increase the number of monthly events that we host. In August, we hosted a speakers forum at Friar Tuck's, and attendance was up over the past years with about 25 people in attendance, which it was early in the morning. So that was quite impressive to get 25 people up there that early. We participate every week in the Cotati Farmers Market. In September, we hosted an anniversary party. It came to our attention that the chamber was 60 years old, so we thought that needed a big party. So we did have a big party, and we had a lot of old, influential chamber members and business members in Cotati come. And it was really great because we have a wall set up with pictures of our history, and they were there to explain who the people were, and oh, I remember that event, that was great. So it was really, really a wonderful party. Everybody had a good time. We sponsored the Peace and Justice event at the La Plaza Park in September. In October, of course, we hosted our annual Oktoberfest, which last year we had to cancel because of the fires, which was very bad because we make a lot of money at that event, and it was a terrible thing that we had to do, but we can't have an event when you can't breathe and see, and people have just lost their homes. So this year, we brought it back greater than ever. We estimated between 800 to 1,000 people were there. It's a free event. We don't put up a gate and keep anybody out. Anybody can come in. It's family oriented. We had games and costume contests and great German food and German beer. A wonderful band that was very authentic, but then they also played Leonard Skinner. They were great. And they had that big Ricola horn thingamajiggy. It was great. Everybody had a really fun time. We held a ribbon cutting for the new downtown business Gemini Salon. In November, we had a new business workshop on 11/6, and we had a business roundtable with Senator Dodd. That was actually today. That happened today, and we had 30 people there. It was really good. Lots of good information came from the state level and the county level, and we had about 30 people there, so it was really great. And tomorrow starts our December holiday thing. So we're co-sponsoring the Cotati Shop and Stroll. We will be hosting the holiday cheer on December 6th, and we will have a booth at the holiday tree lighting on December 7th. And we'll be hosting a ribbon cutting for Sal's Pizza when their tenant improvements are done. So we are doing a lot of marketing and new partnership with Napa Small Business Development Center. We're working with SSU. We are doing a monthly member profile. Each month an article is written on our website, which Liz is a hotshot at marketing and all that Facebook and Instagram stuff that I know nothing about, but she's really keeping it up to snuff. We do the bi-weekly chamber newsletter. It's sent to over 400 addresses. We participate in the quarterly meetings with other local chambers. We discuss new ideas and share events with the other chambers, and then we learn. It's good to talk to other chambers and see how they're doing things. It's a great source of inspiration and information. Attendance has been up at all of our events. We developed a membership tracking system where we currently put a large effort into growing our membership. We are reaching out to past members and new members. We have contacted 30 plus businesses in the past month via phone, email, and in person. We participate in the Sonoma County Economic Development Program. Liz and I go to those meetings. Once again, another great way to learn how other chambers are doing it and businesses. And the Sonoma Economic Development Program is really great. They offer us a lot of information. We created and hosted the Cotati Music Festival last year. It was formerly the Jazz Festival, and I know some people were not happy about that. However, we had well over 1,000 people there, another free event. We had local bands there, local big bands that have albums out. Remember albums? Yes, we had local bands there that have albums and have big followings. It was another successful event, and the community had a wonderful time. all of our vendors sold out. They said this was the best event they've ever done. They sold out the, what do you call those, funnel cake guy? I wanted one, but he sold out. So it's very bad. Like I said, we hosted our 13th annual Oktoberfest. So I think we're doing a darn good job. We redesigned, we actually, talking about branding, the chamber got a new logo, and we're in the process of updating and rebranding ourselves, but we got a very slick new logo that is the, I wish I had a picture of it. It's got the hexagon around it, and it's just very clean and simple. So we're in the process of rebranding. We've got a new website that features things on it that other chambers charge their members for, and we do it as a free service for our chamber members. So we think we're a really good chamber to be a part of, and we love representing the city of Cotati. And I love to brag about Cotati when I go to all these other events. I say, well, we have a downtown. Oh, and we have a museum. So we are doing a good job promoting Cotati. Any questions?
Thank you, Erin. I'm just going to look to the council and see if anybody has any questions for you right now.
No, I don't have any questions. I do want to commend you guys for the work that you're putting in. I know as board members, as volunteer,
Yes, sir.
you still have other issues that you deal with businesses and lives and things like that. And I think it's great, and the fact that you guys are just taking up the mantle and running with it. I think it's good.
Thank you. Thank you for supporting us.
And if my colleagues have nothing to say, I had a couple of questions. I'll start with a general comment. First of all, I'd never pictured Leonard Skinner music oompa band style.
Can you believe it?
I don't want to almost, but
Oh my gosh, were you there?
that I missed. That I did
Oh
not
my
hear.
gosh, they were so good. They did Mustang Sally also.
All right, I'm going to take your word for it. We have to check that out for sure.
Yep.
Glad to see all the effort actually this year. I mean, I was going to start my comments by saying I hope you find time to sleep, because I'm just impressed with a lot of efforts on multiple fronts, which is always difficult when you have a very small staff and you're trying to get something going. But 6 new members in this half year, that's 1 a month. Considering the chamber had been pretty status quo for many, many years, that's a very good direction. Very pleased to see this turning around.
Thank
So a couple of questions for you. Easy ones, I hope. You talked about an increased presence in social media and being on at least 3 social media platforms. I was curious. We have some tools in place. I'm familiar, at least with Facebook. I assume there's some tools to measure reach and feedback. I'd like to, next time you come back, if you can report if that's increasing. That would be a good sign for us to know that you're in a better place to do more marketing, because the more reach you have through these platforms, the more you get that word out for our local businesses. So if you could track that and bring that, I think that would be really helpful to us. And I wanted to ask if I could get you, one of my concerns and something I'm really pleased to see you guys putting such an effort into was reaching out to some of the businesses who historically have not participated in some years. Particularly I'm thinking on the west side in the industrial area. I think this is an interest that we both share, and I know you put some effort in. Can you give me any preliminary feedback on numbers of people who are interested, or what you're hearing from them, and how that is going?
Well, let me just tell you, I did a business retention trip with Vicki and the young man from the county, and there was a business there that automotive painting thing, and he said, you know, it's a real problem not being able to find good workers. And he really emphasized the fact that high schools aren't teaching these programs anymore. And I said, well, I think that the high school is teaching auto body. And they were at the time. And I went back to the high school. I have a long history at the high school. And went to the high school and talked to the people, and they said, no, we don't have the auto body program anymore because they can't find a teacher that wants to teach it. So, and then I heard about a program. Actually, I went to a fundraiser at Sonoma Mountain Village for the, I want to say it's called the Lime program. There's a couple in Runner Park that are opening up a teen center at the University Square. And it will be a place where teens can go hang out, but they can go there and learn skills. And they're starting with the barista program skills to teach these kids so they can get a job. They also have some people that are interested in teaching automotive programs. So I went to this fundraiser, got the information that this man had asked me for, and went and brought it back to him. So we are trying to make those connections for those businesses over there.
Well, from my take, I think that's the right direction, that
Yes.
personal effort and very clear effort.
Yes, and I'm
At all
glad that you
levels
told
makes a
that young
difference.
lady about Krylon too, because that's a wonderful industry over there that does the makeup for the theater. So good for connecting her to those people
Good,
over
that was her
there.
area of interest. So with that, I'm going to thank you very much, and I think we're going to open up to the public after public comment. We'll see if the council has any more questions, but this is just a receiving an update, so I think with that, we should be good, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
But since we have had some significant discussion, this is an action item, I will open it up to public comment. Ms. Alderman.
Mayor Landman, if I may, what is the action item on this?
Excuse me just a minute.
Just advice?
This is part of a... This is a regular agenda item, it's an action item, and we did comment on it a fair amount, so I'd like to open it up to the public.
Thank you.
It could go either way, but I think it should be open to the public. Please go ahead.
I have no problems with the council, the Chamber of Commerce. I do have an issue with that. This is it has to do with the $15,000 donation to the Chamber of Commerce. They are supposed to be, by membership dues, self-supporting. You have disrespected for years that this is a 501c6 charity. You cannot donate to it. You can contract for visitor services. No, I told the chamber, I've told you guys for years, and you just want to donate the citizens $15,000. You think you would try to be legal after all these years, and you disrespect my legal knowledge, and the city lawyer should be supporting that. There was 46 contacts in 3 months. If you were doing, if this was a business and you were doing visitors, that is one person every 2 days. Of the $15,000, that is $109 per visit per year. I did all the math. You could take somebody out to dinner, a show, and all that for $109 for visitor services. That's all you should be paying for. A Chamber of Commerce is supposed to be self-supporting. Why you decide to take most of the city council donation money and give it to the chamber instead of any other cause is so disrespectful to the rule of law and this city, the citizens of the city.
And thank you, Ms. Alderman. All right, would anybody else like to speak on this particular item? Going once, going twice, we'll close this and bring this back. All right, council, any last comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for the presentation and good luck for your continued work. I hope to see more good efforts like this and keep going in this direction, from my personal opinion at least. All right. This brings us to item 12B. And evidently we are now talking trash. This is our draft trash implementation plan. And I believe we're going to be at least introduced to this by Craig Scott, our Director of Public Works and City Engineer.
Mayor, members of the council, Craig Scott, Public Works Director, City Engineer, thank you. So this is the third trip to council, before council on this topic. Beginning in the spring, we presented a summary of the city's stormwater program to protect basically stormwater from getting polluted as it runs through our stormwater system into the creeks. And also at that first meeting in the spring, we considered approving a professional service agreement with West Yost and Associates to prepare the trash implementation plan. The second time this item was before council was in September, when we presented the results of one of the first tasks, which was a visual trash assessment of the city to identify where we stood with trash in the city, if it was low, medium areas, any high areas, and the results of that analysis then fed into the report that you're going to be hearing a presentation on tonight, which is the draft trash implementation plan. And this is to be presented, this is an information item, and we are to submit this to the Regional Water Quality Control Board on Saturday, on the 1st of December. I think we're going to just aim for this week, get it submitted by Thursday or Friday of this week. And with us, I'd like to introduce Colleen Hunt, who is a senior scientist with West Yost and Associates, and she has been managing the preparation of this plan, and is a familiar face as she's made all the presentations to date. So with that.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thank you, Craig, for the introduction. As Craig mentioned, I have been the program manager for preparing the Cotati's trash implementation plan. And so we're here this evening to provide an update on what that plan consists of and the draft that we've prepared to submit to the Regional Water Board, as Craig said, this week. Next slide. An outline on the presentation. I'll go briefly through the background of the trash provisions, which we've gone over, but just so that we are all on the same page of what the requirements are and why this plan has been prepared. We'll also review the trash generation data, which Craig mentioned. The second presentation that it provided was the results of visual assessments. And so I'll briefly show the map that highlights where the trash problems were identified. We're going to talk about trash management areas, which is kind of areas of the community where we're going to focus trash management controls, strategy for compliance, cost estimates for full capture systems, and an implementation schedule. So I provided, just to start off with, a glossary of terms. This is a technical presentation, and a lot of the terms that I've provided in this glossary come right out of the regulations. And so I incorporate those terms into my work, into the plan, into this presentation. And so to help kind of follow along with some of these terms, we went ahead and memorialized those for your reference. So the trash provisions are statewide initiative adopted by the State Water Board. The Regional Water Board issued the City of Cotati a 13-383 order requiring the preparation of this plan and its submittal by December 1st. The trash provisions provide two mechanisms for compliance. Track 1, which is to treat all the priority land uses in the city with structural devices that physically capture trash in runoff. And track 2 is a little more leniency to not have to treat the whole area, but just to focus on problem areas and to allow institutional controls such as street sweeping and other forms of trash management in the city, along with a combination of full capture systems. So the City of Cotati, back in 2017, selected track 2 for their track for compliance. And the ultimate requirement is to not have a discharge of trash from your stormwater conveyance system once the plan is fully implemented, which has a 10-year period. So it's ultimately what we're trying to accomplish with this plan. So here's the map that I presented back in September. Green areas were found to be low trash, and the yellow areas were found to be medium trash. And medium is defined as, obvious. There's pieces scattered here and there. It's not a lot of trash. but it's noticeable and enough to create kind of a flag that says, well, there's more trash here than should be, and we need to address these areas. Cotati did not have any high or very high trash areas, so we just have these 6 yellow clusters, if you will. Correlate almost directly with commercial retail areas, except for one area was high density residential. The green areas are considered to meet the trash provisions because it's low trash already. There's recognition that there's very little trash being conveyed into the stormwater system from this area. So what's presented to the regional board in the plan is that these areas are meeting the intent of the trash provisions already with the institutional controls that Cotati is already implementing. The yellow areas, the medium trash areas, are the areas we're going to focus on to further reduce trash to meet the trash provisions. And there are some options for doing that. There is treating with full capture systems. As I said, those are structural devices that are installed in the storm drain system to capture trash. You can treat them with best management practices, which is street sweeping, public education and outreach, additional garbage cans, all kinds of different types of trash management, things you can do to try and reduce the trash from being discharged, or a combination of the two. So for the purposes really of just planning, we've identified each of the 6 yellow areas as being in trash management areas. So they're just labeled 1 through 6 so that we can refer to them easily in the plan. So just a quick identifying of these trash management areas. Went through and just kind of put briefly where these are in your city and what businesses are operating in these areas. So number 1 is Lowe's. Number 2 is a car wash and a small strip mall that has a liquor store, a grocery store. 3 is a gas station and various restaurants and other types of community areas. 4 is downtown between La Plaza and Page Street. Number 5 is Oliver's Shopping Center. And number 6 is the residential area of Santerio Way. So in meeting with Craig, we decided that treating these commercial areas with full capture systems ended up making a lot of sense. And I'll go through kind of some details and what led us to making that conclusion. But essentially what the plan is proposing is to install full capture systems in these 5 areas. So these are all the commercial retail areas that were found to be medium trash. And so we actually found through doing some cost analysis that it ended up being a pretty cost-effective approach. And what the trash provisions say is that the cities are required to consider cost with considering the installation of full capture systems. And the language that's used in the provision said that full capture systems are required where it's not cost prohibited. And that's a little bit of a loose language on, what exactly, how do you define cost prohibitive? But through our analysis and working with city staff, we came to the conclusion that the cost for the full capture systems are not cost prohibited. And there's a true benefit to installing these full capture systems because it provides a direct mechanism of compliance. And so once they're installed and these areas are treated, it's considered compliance with that zero discharge. And so as these 5 areas are treated over time, you're eliminating the discharge of trash from these medium areas. So it's a really direct way to comply. And you don't have to prove the effectiveness of these systems. They're state-approved systems, You just have to make sure that they are properly maintained. So to look at the cost effectiveness, we studied Area 4, which is downtown. And we selected Area 4 primarily because we suspected if there was any area that needed full capture, it would be this area. Because of the way the streets are configured and the sidewalks, the street sweeper is missing certain areas. And so we wanted to look at this area a little bit more closely because street sweeping is shown to be a very effective trash control measure. And so in this particular area, we had concerns that trash was being missed by the street sweeper. So we wanted to study Area 4. And we looked at 3 types of full capture systems. We looked at small inlet-based systems. And so these are devices that are installed in every inlet in the drainage area that needs to be treated. Then we looked at larger devices that could be placed in a manhole that treats a larger area. So you don't need separate individual devices in every inlet. You can put these in an area that drains a much larger area. And so you have a larger device. You have fewer devices needed with these larger devices. And then we looked at Green Street infrastructure, which is basically using landscaping to direct runoff into, it has multiple benefits, but trash capture is one of them. So this was the cost breakdown for the downtown area. The small inlet devices were, I think we needed 11 devices to install in the area, so it's to capture in every inlet. So that's what that $30,400 represents. Whereas the larger device is more expensive. And there were a few of the smaller inlet devices needed in this area also, just the way the drainage worked. But what we found is then on the maintenance side, you have all of these small devices now. They need more frequent maintenance, and you have more of them to maintain. So that maintenance cost for the smaller devices per year ends up being higher than the larger device, which can be maintained less frequently. And there's less of them, so that there's this weighing factor of the upfront costs versus the annual maintenance costs. And so we projected a 20-year life cycle cost on these, and those are the figures that came up with the larger device option being the less expensive option. And then the Green Street infrastructure kind of came in at a very high price tag, and we kind of were like, do we even present this? Like, this is so high. But just to give a comparison, that we did consider it, and the reason this cost is so high is because it's quite invasive you're basically digging up the sidewalks, parts of the street, repaving, redirecting stormwater. So it's pretty involved to get green streets in a retrofit area. And then to treat the whole area that is considered to be medium trash generation, it really drove the price up. So we put that on there just to show that we did consider it. So that was the cost breakdown. And I think where, the cost, is it cost prohibitive or not? What we found is the devices weren't as expensive as I think we initially thought they were going to be. These inlet-based devices run between $1,000 to $2,000 each. They're really not as expensive as we were thinking it was going to be, especially when these provisions first came out. We were thinking it would be a lot higher costs. There is the 20-year life cycle costs to consider in the ongoing maintenance. But in terms of efficiency for compliance, the full capture systems really provide the city with the right mechanism to demonstrate compliance in the long term. And then the sixth area, which is the residential area, we elected to not install full capture systems there. Instead, we're going to, I'm going to go to the next slide, implement targeted outreach to that community. And so this would be in addition to current outreach efforts, but really targeting the specific community. We don't have a specific plan in place on what exactly the outreach would be, but just in a more broad scope, that's our proposal for addressing the trash in this area. And what will happen in this area is the city will have to demonstrate the effectiveness of the outreach. And so that will require reassessing the area. So you implement outreach for a couple of years, you do some ongoing assessments a few times a year, and the protocol recommends that if you have 3 consecutive low assessments, that you are considered successful in your trash reduction measures, and then that would be considered compliance. And so that would be the plan for that specific area, is to do the outreach and then assess the effectiveness. And then, of course, throughout the whole jurisdiction, you have your ongoing trash control measures. And these are all highlighted in the plan as things that the city has been doing and continues to do to manage trash, and quite successfully. You know, the green area is the majority of the map, and so it does show that these control measures are successful at reducing trash. And then we're proposing to implement one new trash control measure jurisdiction-wide, and that's to include information about this plan on the city's website, and to include the plan itself, and then information about trash and stormwater and creeks and rivers, and then also tracking progress and being transparent with that progress on the website. So the schedule for implementation. Right now, this plan will be required to be implemented through the municipal stormwater permit that the city of Cotati is under. So right now that permit has no requirements related to this trash plan. Those have to be built into either a new permit or a revised, a revision of the current permit. And so once that language is in your permit, then you'll be required to implement the plan. Right now, what I'm getting from the Water Board is probably a 2021 permit renewal. So this, and what the trash provisions say is that the cities will have 10 years to implement these requirements, but with a hard date of December 2030 for full compliance. So by that date, there's the expectation that trash will be, there'll be a zero discharge of trash through the stormwater conveyance system no later than December 2030. So when I put this schedule together, it was based on some assumptions that the city would have the full 10 years to implement the plan. If your permit's not renewed till 2021, that won't be the case. But I went off the trash provision saying that you have 10 years to comply. And then the other assumption I made was that you would be given in your permit a requirement to reduce trash loading by 10% a year. And the trash provisions allude to that being the requirement, but it's a little open-ended. And so the Water Board, I suppose, could put something different in the permit, but I just wanted to provide that disclosure as well. So what we did is we calculated how to achieve 10% a year over 10 years. And with Trash Management Area 1, Lowe's, they have some low impact development already at that property. And we will be able to claim trash reduction measures from those low impact development features for the Lowe's drainage area. So that will cover 30% of the trash reduction measures in the first year. So that buys 2 years where we don't have to do anything specific, and we can plan and save for and budget for the other full capture devices throughout the rest of the implementation period. So then for years 4, 5, 6, and 7, those are all years that there would be full capture installation in one of the trash management areas. And that corresponds with the order of trash management areas on the schedule. And I calculated it to make sure you hit that 10% mark per year. So you want to get at least 10% reduction with each full capture installation device. And then the last year ends up just being an 8-year time frame to get the full reduction, and that's having successful implementation in Trash Management Area 6, which is where there will not be full capture devices. That will be the public outreach. I think that was the last slide.
Thank you, Ms. Huntai. I'll bring it back to the council and see who has any questions for staff. Councilmember Harvey.
Thank you. I do have a couple questions. You mentioned that the smaller devices at each inlet, and you did a 20-year life cycle cost just to project costs. So do the devices last that long?
That's a really good question. So for those smaller devices, no. So
No.
that 10-year life cycle cost includes a replacement. I think it's 10 years.
10-year, okay.
But then the larger device does have a 20-year life cycle cost. So
Okay.
that doesn't have to be replaced until 20 years.
All right. And then we talked about Area 6 and our favorite area out there. Do we think that some of it might be because there is so many more trash cans out there, and the picking up of the trash is not as clean as at least some of us would like? And so considering the number of trash cans out there, if every trash can is dropping a little, that would tend to leave a lot more out there. And I know people don't have a tendency, particularly in a multi-family area, to go up and clean up the trash. Do we have any insights on to that? Because that's what driving out there on a day which is trash day. I mean, there's hundreds of trash cans just because of the way they did that. So I guess I was curious if there was something else in that we could do. And then when you talk about jurisdiction-wide, I was wondering some form of the highlights of the plan, could they maybe be put in the monthly newsletter that goes out in the water bills to kind of let people know what this is about? Just something that I thought maybe we could add there. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Great, thanks. I'd like to actually deviate to the draft plan, and specifically page 12. And I Googled this word, and I couldn't find it in the English dictionary, so it's the title for item 6.0.
That's a typographical error. I apologize. Yeah, I apologize. That
Is that
should be
equivalency?
equivalency.
That's kind of what I was hoping.
Yeah, sorry.
I just had to get
apologize.
past that.
It's been changed. That's been captured and
This is good,
changed.
because
So
it's
thank
just
you.
a draft plan, so it's all good. Going back to one of your slides, you don't need to do it, but it was one that was referring to the medium trash areas where you had basically three options of treating with full capture, best management practices, or a combination of the two. And I think you answered this later on in the program, but I just want to make sure. If we chose the option where we treated with just best management practices, and then we found it wasn't sufficient, what happens at that point? But I think I heard you say, with whatever method, if there's 3 consecutive years of low, then that's compliance. So would that be the response for that question I had?
Yeah, so yes, that is the response, but I think maybe to further dive into your question,
Sure.
if you don't get the 3 lows consecutively,
Right.
eventually that's going to be a problem. And so at that point, you would have to consider how are we going to meet the mandate to reduce the trash discharge in this area. And so there is an option then to go back and say, okay, we're going to install full capture here because our outreach efforts are not working. And so there is an option to re-strategize
That's what I
how
was
to
hoping.
comply.
Right.
Yeah.
So regardless of the option, if we find for 2 years it's sufficient, and then we have a couple of years where it's back to the medium away from the low, we have a problem, and then we can, switch gears, so to speak.
Yes.
Here's the part that I just can't fathom, is that cost. That's blowing me away, because you could pay me $100,000 and I'll pick up all the trash, but I think it's more complicated than that. So is there, in these capturing systems, is there a size of waste that is captured? I mean, we're talking from, say, old newspapers that are in gutters versus bottle caps of plastic water bottles, or something even smaller yet. I mean, what is sort of that small size?
Yeah, so there's actually a mandate to capture 5 millimeters and larger. So 5 millimeters is the diameter of a cigarette butt. And so that's kind of the goal, is to capture cigarette butts and larger. And so what happens with these smaller devices is you've got a very tight screen to be able to capture that size trash. And so it starts to clog, and it can clog relatively quickly, not just with trash, but really with leaves. Ends up being the bigger maintenance problem, if you will. And so the smaller devices, that's why they need to be cleaned out more frequently, is because they clog with the leaves relatively quick.
Sure. I mean, I kind of noticed just in my neighborhood when the street sweeper came through on Friday, I guess it was, or Saturday, one moment there was leaves, just because there's some European sycamores that were planted as landscaping in the neighborhood that I live in 30-something years ago. And, they drop leaves the size of Volkswagen bugs, right? So it's amazing once the street sweeper goes through, all of a sudden, the sidewalks are still plugged, which is problematic, of course, because that's just going to go in the street, and it's just this vicious cycle. But, and that becomes the responsibility of the city, the cleaning out?
Of the devices, yes.
Okay, I'm very glad this is a small city, because I can't even fathom this concept in a large city. It would blow me away. But having said that, those are my questions for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Moore, anything for us tonight?
Yeah, in looking at all this, I didn't see any reference to a picture of the device or a description of the device.
Oh, yes. I could send those along. I do have pictures. When we did the cost analysis, we provided them in a technical memo to the city, and I regret not including those. Good comment.
And then to piggyback, going back to Councilmember DeLasso's statement, if we are low at the moment and don't necessarily implement anything for the first 2 years,
really, the way that the calculations work out is the low area, I don't want to say is dismissed, because you are doing things to address trash there, but it's that there's no requirement to further reduce trash in those areas. So the schedule that I showed with the percent reduction is all based on just the yellow areas. And so that first year, the compliance comes in with confirming that Lowe's is capturing trash through their low impact development features. And that provides 30% compliance of the first 3 years.
Thank you.
Very good. Yeah, I have a few questions. I don't know if they'll be for Ms. Hunt or staff. I'll let whoever wants to jump in. First of all, I think this is a great thing. Glad to see it coming. Over the years, been a few times done some community cleanups in creeks, and anybody that's done that and seen small brittle plastic disintegrate into 1,000 pieces as you try to pick it out of a creek knows the value of this. So this is a great thing. First thing I want to go back to is Santero, because that jumped out at me as kind of the outlier here. It's pretty clear if you look at the data in here that where we have our problems with litter, with rubbish that gets into the water stream, it's by places with industry, business, fast food, typical places. But in most of the neighborhoods, the residential neighborhoods, street sweeping seems to do the job. But for some reason in Santero, very usually well-kept, nice neighborhood, this isn't happening. That takes me to wonder, is there any specific time that we're aware of? I should remember this, I was just through there, but I don't. Is there a posted no parking for street sweeping at any time in that neighborhood? Because it occurs to me parking is a huge problem in the neighborhood, and usually that parking is taken up all day long. Somebody's going to be in one of those spots that are closest to where the apartments are. And I'm wondering if that's the source of our problem, is that the street sweeper can come there whenever they want, but they're never going to get to the curb because there's always cars there.
I think it could be any combination of like the numerous trash cans and cans that don't get that maybe get tipped over during emptying and some trash gets out that way. It could be the configuration of the street itself with the bulb outs and the sidewalks that make it sometimes hard for sweepers to get in. And it could be the extent of the parking in there. Where
I've never seen the place empty. I'm sure the only time it's empty is they're required to leave one side open at night. I don't know if Recology does any night street sweeping, and I don't know if that's on our table of options. But
no, but I think all these they're really good points. And when they develop the educational program for that neighborhood, these are all things that they'll have to think through. And
one way or the other, we'll come to a system that works. But just wanted to put that out there. Let's see.
Mayor,
Next.
If I may comment on that. In walking the neighborhoods and going down on Santero Way this last several months, one of the issues I heard was the trash cans have to be pulled out into those driveways that are perpendicular to Santero Way, and the trash trucks that go in there are not always picking up all of the cans that are there, and so that's probably another area that exacerbates that problem. So that might be.
Looks like we'll have our hands full with Area 6. So, all right. Good to know. So, one thing I was curious about too, you mentioned as we were talking about efforts to work with commercial areas that have a lot of litter from some of the businesses as they have. You mentioned doing outreach to areas such as Chevron Gas Station, Mr. Sparkle's Car Wash, numerous others. And you mentioned that the outreach was well received and the owners were very receptive. And I'm glad to see that, and not surprised. We have very responsible business owners in this community. But I was curious, what options are open to us as a community if we ever become in a position where we have ongoing substantial non-compliance that's completely related to one or two businesses? We've talked about a carrot on page 120. We talked about giving businesses who partner with us recognition on our city stormwater page, which is great. But what are the sticks that would come down the road if we have a situation? Are there any? Because these costs, I can see, add up over years, certainly.
Well, yes, as part of our permit compliance back in 2017, just last year, we passed an ordinance 13.68 that is our stormwater ordinance, and it has compliance provisions in there, so we can issue violation orders, cease and desist, stop work orders, all sorts of.
Well, I like the way, the order you're going in. I think it's great that we're trying to work with people first and stuff and see if there's ways. I look at the neighborhood trail behind, on the west side of town, right by one of the gas stations that has a market and a fast food place. A lot of trash blows in there, and perhaps there's ways to help make that easier for the people, because right now the HOA that owns that bears the cost probably of trying to clean that. And it might be as simple as just outreach, posting an extra garbage can, simple things. So, but that's good to hear. Last question I had for you, more of a suggestion, I don't know, but you mentioned having bioswales over at the Lowe's area that may be functional for full capture system. I'm assuming planning's already thinking this, but I would guess in the very unlikely chance that we have any future development of even mid-size commercial or strip mall or business parks, I'm thinking the 116 corridor, potentially that actually could still happen in Cotati. I wonder if we're looking to build that. I wonder if we're looking to build that into the plan. So that's just built into the bioswale. So once the Green Street is built in there, we already have that in place.
Yes, most all of our regulations that are geared toward new development emphasize low impact development techniques of one kind or another. So I'm sure I don't know the engineering behind it, but I'm sure there are lots of ways we could build them in as we go versus the difficulty of retrofitting.
Right. It just seems from hearing the story about the downtown and seeing how close we are, but we're not sure if it works at Lowe's, that's a desirable direction to go, and it sounds like you're already going there, so thank you. All right, if we have one more question, and then we'll open to public comment.
You talked about the cleaning out of the smaller devices and how the leaves clog it up, and therefore that needs to be cleaned out more regularly. How about the larger devices?
The larger devices, because they're larger, they have a bigger capacity, and so they can take on, they still get the leaves and non-trash items, but they're so much larger that those items can be in there without causing disruption to the system, and so they don't have to be cleaned out as frequently. Where the smaller devices, if they're not cleaned out, you'll start getting flooding issues and things like that, and so that's what the larger devices are a little more appealing, even though they're more expensive up front. They do have a lot of benefit, including the less maintenance and less likely to cause flooding and things like that. Things you want to be obviously careful with.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. Well, I'm going to open this item to public comment and see if anybody wishes to comment. Looking out at the audience, I am not seeing anybody come forward, so I'm going to bring this back to the council. This is a presentation to receive, so if we have no further questions and you have direction comments, yes?
I think we have one comment, potentially, public comment.
You're going to have to wave better than that from the back. My apologies. Come on up, Mr. Kirchman. Or you could always use a card if you'd like.
Thank you for your suggestions.
You're welcome.
Finished?
Please proceed.
Thank you. A couple of issues. Unfortunately, pretty regularly you folks talk about parking. Mayor Landman mentioned, oh, maybe we should have one side of the street for street cleaning and vice versa. Unfortunately, your parking doesn't tend to be a priority. 20-minute parking is parked in for 2 days at a time. 2-hour parking is not enforced, unless potentially I park there. So until you have a realistic enforcement program, don't talk about parking. Mr. Landman, on your way home, go down School Street and see a car that's been sitting on the side of the road for 6 months. Odds are when it rains, the work they're doing is going to wash oil and garbage into the street. Behind it, there's a piece of furniture, a billboard, don't really know what it is, but it's on a public street, and it sits there. At the bottom of your hill, there's a trailer. It's illegal to park trailers on public streets. It's been there for, well, you go down your street, you can tell how often. So it's kind of amusing that you're worried about parking. When you talk about street cleaning, there are numerous streets that never get cleaned. And your wonderful garbage company, which borders on a monopoly since they have 16 states and pretty much control everything, they've done nothing to keep things like garbage reincarnation going. In fact, they're phasing them out because they don't have space at the dump. So a recycling program is dismissed after 40 years. But they don't go to every street. And when they do pick up trash, they go down the same street 2 and 3 times and pick up random, oh, residential, oh, commercial. It should kind of be coordinated. You're wasting a lot of fuel, you're wasting a lot of, the trucks are pretty good at dripping oil on your streets. I believe oil washes in. And worrying about leaf litter is kind of nice, but I think you have to start taking the big picture instead of feeling good about yourself and getting a nice 45-minute report. Thank you.
And thank you as always. All right, I'm going to look one more time and see if anybody else wants to speak. I'm even going to look for hands just going this low. And I'm not seeing any. All right, so this time we really are closed to public comment. And I will ask staff, did you get enough direction and comment to go forward? Very good, thank you. All right, that concludes that particular item. This brings us to our third regular agenda action item, 12C, and this is adopting motion to receive and file the fiscal year 2017-18 audited comprehensive annual financial report, or the CAFR. And Mr. Obid, I believe you're going to be presenting this one for us.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. We don't have Norm tonight, but we have a great accounting staff that put together our second annual CAFR. And the CAFR is, I'll just say for everyone's benefit, is a much more robust financial accounting or audit, annual audit, than the basic financial audit that we had previously done several years ago. And for example, I'll just say, like on packet page 161 and 162, there's a table of contents for the CAFR. The basic financial statement is the section under the financial section. That was the scope of the audit. And so what the CAFR does is it adds an introduction to the front of it. It also adds these supplementary information. The first one, the required for a CAFR, that is it compares the major funds, but like budget to actual. And then also the other supplementary information compares the non-major funds, budget to actual. And then finally, statistical section, which looks at 10-year trends in all different manners. And I won't go through them all. They're all in the table of contents there and in the report itself. But it's a very comprehensive, as the name implies, report of the city's financial health. And one of the things I find kind of interesting about it, just about audits, and it's interesting when we talk to accountants that deal with real numbers. They call them real numbers, like actual numbers, right? And then you have actuaries that deal with projections. And if you ask an accountant, it's imaginary numbers, right? And you don't want to put an accountant and an actuary in a room together and leave them alone in there too long. But it's interesting how just the GASB standards have evolved over the years, and those are the accounting standards for governmental finance. How they've evolved over the years, and they include all the actuarial statements, which are the year-end actuals, which are for example, like the fund statements in here, and then you have the government-wide stuff, which introduces also some actuarial information, which is not real. It's not real in this current year information, but just projections of future revenues and expenses. So but that's all just to point out that the way that the financials sections are laid out, it's really, when you first look at it, it's a bit confusing. But the government-wide versus the fund statements, they're really the whole point of that is really to, it's kind of like holding up a diamond, right? And you look at it from all different angles. there's not only one way to look at any sort of financial statement, as you probably know, especially an organization that has maybe more complex finances, like any city would. If you can look at it one way, and then you can look at it, 5 or 6 other different ways to get a full comprehensive look at all different aspects of the finances, and that's what we're essentially doing. So even though the information may seem redundant in some ways, that's really from an accounting perspective, what they're trying to accomplish is looking at the same information in numerous different ways, so that if you are an accountant, or if you are, someone that would be buying bonds, or if you're just a member of the public that's curious about the city's finances, you can see it. You can see it in, many different ways, so that you have the full 360 view of how the city's financials are. And just a couple of things I'll highlight is it was a clean audit, and there was no qualifications to it. So that's what you always want. That means it's everything is clean and transparent from an auditing perspective. And also on the staff reports, this is packet page 154, under financial highlights, it talks about the government-wide statements. Now this is a way to look at the finances more like a private business might, where you combine funds and you look at sort of the overall enterprise, versus the fund statements, which looks at them fund by fund, which is how we actually budget for them, and how, due to accounting rules, we have to pay for things and expense things. Anyway, under the government-wide financials, you can see that there was an increase in the net position, and the overall governmental activities net position increased by 3.3 million, and business type activities. So business type activities is like things where you charge revenue for a service. And so for us, water and sewer enterprise is the obvious one, right? So that one had a slight decrease, but it's basically flat. And it's in a lot of the changes in the activity in both areas were due to capital asset, capital projects and investments in infrastructure, and that's where where the change occurred primarily. And then the next section below that on packet page 155 is the fund financial statements, and this is looking at it more like maybe we're more familiar with seeing it, which is at a fund by fund basis, which is how we budget for things and account for things. And again, they take the major funds, which is based on a transactional dollar threshold, and the biggest of the major funds, of course, is the general fund, and then there's a couple other major funds, and then the minor funds are all grouped together, and these are just minor based on the fact that they don't have a lot of financial activity in them. And if you go to the probably the best sort of detailed analysis is if you go to the management discussion and analysis part of the CAFR, which starts on page 184. It goes through both the government-wide and then also the fund statements, and kind of breaks it all down, and then it's followed by all the actual numbers, which you can get lost in. But the MD&A, as it's called, the management discussion and analysis, which provides the summary of that, in addition to the staff report, of course. So I think that's probably enough out of that. I won't bore you anymore with. I don't know if it's boring. I think it's kind of exciting in some ways, but Norm, I think, rubbed off on me. But anyway, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
That's not necessarily a bad thing, Mr. Obid. I'll bring it back to the council. So, you have any questions or comments before I open to public comment?
Just thank you. I like the numbers.
Those are good numbers, yes. Yeah, and I really do like the direction we've gone in terms of the larger window. Not only the multiple directions, which makes sense. If you're going to check something, you want to be able to test a system by looking at it from numerous angles. That makes sense. But just having the larger range, the historical range, to do comparison tells a bigger picture, which I think is helpful for people that really want to get into the real facts. So that's good. All right, with that, I'm going to open to see if anybody has any public comment on this item. Ms. Alden.
I can sum up what the last fiscal year and what this was. You didn't spend money last year, so things are looking real good. You're spending money this year, so things are going to all change. So don't go saying everything's great and wonderful. It is a very comprehensive report. I like for you all to look at page 277 of the packet, and that is the 10-year comparison. Is one of the best ones we've seen about the financial health of this city. In 2009, when you were getting ready to do Measure A, you had property taxes of $3.2 million. By the 2018, it was 1.5. In sales tax, in 2009 was $1,700,000. Now it is $44 million to $4.2 million. So you pretty much have transferred everything from property tax to sales tax. So it's not now on everybody, the poor, everybody, just not people who own property. It shows also what happened with Measure G. If you look in 2013, well, first look in 2012, 2013. It was down to excess of revenues over expenditures. You pretty much broke even that year. And then if you look back at the services, they were all funded as normal for that year. Then 6 months later, you declared a financial emergency to get Measure G on the ballot. And that was done at the end of June 2014. You had $1.1 million plus dollars, while you're saying you will shutter the police department, that you will cut services, when you had the prior year you had broke even. That you had no right. There was many people said there was no financial emergency to get you this on, and this is proof. It's down there in paper. Numbers do not lie.
All right. Would anybody else like to speak? Looking once, looking twice. All right, very good. We'll bring it back and close public comment and bring it back to the council and see if we have any further direction, comments, questions.
I do have some questions, Mayor,
Please.
if I may. So in 2008, when we're looking at property taxes, at that point was the Great Recession of 2008. And property values and the property taxes that were based upon those values, the Sonoma County Tax Assessor went and reduced the values of the assessed value of those homes. So you have a decrease in property tax because the assessed value of the home is what that's based upon. So then you look back, and then as the economy started to pick back up, you can see that those numbers start to pick back up. I just wanted a clarification on that, because it wasn't just a matter of because property taxes in and of themselves were lower, that we had a fiscal emergency.
It's a good point. So property taxes did drop dramatically, of course, with the recession, and compounding that, which is what you see in the numbers, is that the redevelopment agency dissolved at the same time as well, which also slashed property taxes in half.
Right.
Basically.
Thank you.
Very good. Anything from this side? No? Very good. Well, thank you very much for that, staff. Very good. And this brings us to our city manager's report. Mr. Obid, I believe you are up one more time.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So just some quick updates. The Laguna Sewer is continuing along. You've probably seen some of the trench work in 116. And they have They've done a little bit of work, but they have to hold when there's some rain events. So it's slowing things down, but we'll get there. And the lighting project, just so you all know, because I'm sure you'll probably get some questions on it, is the most of the lights on the Plaza Park are operational. There's some along Old Redwood Highway that you see that are not on yet, because the old Cobra Head style lights are still there. Those are PG. The old lights are PG&E owned lights, and we're relying on PG&E to remove those lights. So we have to wait for them to get out there and remove them, and then that would also at the same time activate the lights that they're replacing, basically. The same thing on McGinnis Circle. Waiting for PG&E to activate those lights. So hopefully soon. We've been asking for a while, so I expect that to happen in the very near future. And then on the recreation front, some good news. We had our Camp Katati Thanksgiving break last week, Monday through Wednesday, when school was out, and we were sold out with 26 campers, and they had lots of fun with crafts and games. And we are also offering 2 more weekly camps for winter break, and this is after Christmas and the first week of January, for parents who need care while school is still in recess. So get the word out if anyone wants to send their kid to camp around the holidays and New Year's. We have some good opportunities here, and actually we had a lot of new kids that we hadn't seen before too. So we were actually advertising at the Roanoke Park Katati School District through flyers and other means. I'll have to check into the PA. That's another avenue that was mentioned tonight. And then this Friday, November 30th at 3 p.m., there will be a tour at the Veranda Fletty Ranch for those who'd like to check it out. And I understand the tour will be rain or shine, and followed by a volunteer work day. And then we also have partnered with the Redwood Empire Food Bank to host a holiday food drive. We're currently accepting non-perishable food items at City Hall, so no Thanksgiving leftovers, please. Stuff still in cans and boxes. And food can be dropped in the barrel in the front door, which is right in the front door here of City Hall. And you can also bring the donations to our upcoming holiday events. We're going to have barrels at each of our holiday events. The Shop and Stroll, and it's not ours, but that one, and also the tree lighting. And the food bank is also offering a senior food basket at the Charles Street Village that I was tipped off to, which is great, to anyone 60 and up on the second Wednesday of each month from 9 to 10 a.m. You do not need to be a resident to receive food, but do need an ID for age verification. And then this Saturday is the 3rd annual Katati Shop and Stroll in our downtown from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Right now we're expecting there to be 75 vendors there, including gifts and food trucks and all sorts of stuff, apparently. So also next Friday, December 7th, is our tree lighting from 4 to 8 p.m. at La Plaza Park. And like always, it'll be full of food and craft vendors and children's craft, storytelling, a trackless train, horse and carriage rides, live entertainment, and then of course Santa, who will help light the Christmas tree. So don't miss that. That's always fun. And then on the 15th of December, that's the next Saturday after that, we host our 3rd annual Breakfast with Santa in the Katati Room. And this is a pancake breakfast followed by holiday craft making and a visit with Santa if you missed him at the tree lighting. And we only have a few spaces left for each of the 2 sessions that we have that morning. So if you haven't signed up soon. And you can do any of this by website or over the phone, or you can, the phone, of course, being Ashley, calling Ashley at 665-4222, or by email, awilson@kataticity.org, or on our website, which is kataticity.org.
Very good. Any questions for the City Manager Council? I have one for you. Charles Street Food Bank. I wonder if we might occasionally, from time to time, either add that potentially to our downtown sign or to our newsletter. Obviously, it's not something we'd be running all the time, but if we could do that from time to time just to give it a bump, because I understand it's sometimes underutilized, and I
hate to see a good service like that be wasted. So if we can help get that word out, I think that would be a good thing to do.
Very good, thank you. All right, and that brings us right to item 14, which is city council member reports. And I'll start right to my right.
Nothing to report.
The soul of brevity, I like it. Looking to this side, Councilmember Harvey.
Nothing to report on our waste management agency meeting was canceled, and I have met with the new interim director, so Steve Morrison.
Interesting, okay. Vice Mayor.
Nothing to report.
You guys are putting the pressure on me. One quick thing, since you did give me direction on it, I wanted to give you feedback. The Legislative Committee, on November 16th, we did revisit the voting requirements as we discussed. Ultimately, we wound up with going with unanimous -1, which was kind of the direction. Early discussion, there were a few communities that wanted to go with a simple majority. So your initial direction was one that other people had, but ultimately, after further discussion, a greater majority went with that. And everybody finally, after significant talk, agreed and came to a consensus that passed unanimously. Mr. Healy from Petaluma, as a matter of fact, actually pushed the motion. We seconded it, and so that is done and should continue to have us be able to achieve good consensus at our meetings, but still make sure that we don't have something get shot down that has strong support and that should go forward. So it seems like a good balance. All right, this brings us to item 15, which is public comment on non-action agenda items. Ms. Alderman, I know you've been waiting.
First, little one on Damien's, he mentions the light project. I'd like to point out that you guys decided in your ultimate wisdom to put on the West School Street side of the School Street tunnel, under a street light, you put a street lamp. Please get out there and look on these kind of things. Okay. Future agenda items. Homelessness. It's cold. It's raining. We've been asking for years. Where are you on this? Are you ever smoke in the air for 2 weeks? Nah, let's leave the homeless out there in the smoke. You know, how many months and months are we going to deal with this? Of you guys not putting it on the agenda. You've refused. Get down to it. You've refused for over at least a year. You're affecting people's lives. You need to get your act together. Senior services. Yes, that little thing about, there's a whole bunch of seniors all over this town that have no idea of anything. There are no senior citizens. There are no senior classes. There's no way for a lot of these people to get to the Rona Park Senior Center. My mom's got friends that take her, but you know, you don't have any coordinated thing to help seniors, and that needs to be changed. Emergency preparedness. Where were you? You've never showed any plans. You've never done anything in case we have anything even close to what Paradise had. You guys have nothing. You've never practiced anything. How about that on the agenda? I think you should have a thing on your ethics, because your ethics have stunk this year. You've never apologized for things. Mr. Moore's email on city email, that should have been an automatic kind of something. It didn't matter it was me. It should have been any citizen. If you use your city email, you should have some consequences on that for a degrading comment. You didn't. That kind of thing needs to be addressed in a city, in an agenda item. You all need to focus on the city, not on the county, as you have in all your positions and all your power there, but on real people here in the city.
Yeah, all right, thank you. Anybody else want to speak on non-action items? All right, I'm seeing no hands up. Very good, that brings us back. We're to 16, information received after the agenda was posted. Do we have any supplemental information that we need to know? No? Very good. With that, that brings us to adjournment at 9:20. We are are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. We will see you here next time. Bye-bye.